Good afternoon. This is the Learning Goal video reflection. If you excuse the mess behind me, I've been busy in the holiday season. Um, so it's gotten a little messy, but the main thing is covering each of the 4 questions that were asked. So, first one says to describe at least 2 different professional writing situations you expect to encounter as a professional which require different stylistic responses. Consider the context and the purpose of writing as well as how the style would reflect understanding of the situation. So, the first one, and I have everything written down on the screen in front of me. I have another screen over here, so I'm looking between the video camera preview as well as my main screen. So I wrote that the first professional writing situation is making a training manual for new employees who need to learn how to perform their job correctly. So when I was hired to the seasonal job that I currently have, I was told a multitude of things that over 2 months have been constantly rewritten by new information. And it's not exactly new, like addendums or anything, it's completely different. So things, for example, that where specific items were stored or placed had been changed about 3 times over those 2 months. And when Black Friday came along, I was a little confused on where things were, as was every other employee. So I think not only that, there were also other situations like when you put something from the iPad when ringing an item up and then transferring it to the cash register. They said one way of doing it is just to suspend the transaction and then retrieve it from there. But I had found that an easier way is just going into there and clicking the end of sale tab on the register and then retrieving it. And it took like 3 steps less. So they had ideas, but sometimes nobody really knew the right answer or how to efficiently tell me information. So I had a lot of conflicting information from the store manager, assistant store manager, and the supervisor. So it was a little bit of a struggle. So a training manual that was very clear and told me where things would be placed, what to do for shipping, what to do for, suspending, or not really suspending your transactions, but sending them to the cash register. Excuse me. Those would have been very useful so that I could have been better prepared. And I think that should be something that would be done. So I could use that information and put it towards, use the information that I had gained from the class and put it towards like a training manual as a professional writing situation. The second one, which I've already encountered, was a resume. And a lot of what was used or taught in the class with rhetoric, for example, was used on a cover letter and the resume. I have found that before I took the class, my resume was lacking in a lot of places, and I wasn't getting like the consideration to be hired anywhere. I had about 3 interviews during this class, and 2 of them, I got to the, all 3 of them, I guess, I got to the interview, the in-person interview part, in which I hadn't in previous attempts through my college career. So I mainly attribute a lot of the success to the class because I started to implement more of what I learned into it, like where to cut out any jargon, or where to be more precise and accurate, I guess, in what I was saying, to cut out a lot of the filler nonsense, or the useless, like, emphasis, I guess, on certain words. And I was able to go get an interview at 3 different places. 2 of them didn't go anywhere, but 1 of them did, and that's, to me at least, a lot better than my other attempts. But the reading from the book was able to contribute a lot to that. So second question is, which of the many style guides covered by students in this class seems most relevant to writing you expect to do as a professional, and why? So I'm very interested in history, and honestly I think the most relevant style guide to my professional career is actually the one that I had covered, which was the Chicago style. I mainly chose it because I already knew a lot about that one. When I had taken an anthropology class and an art history class, they had already recommended that I use that style guide for any further papers, so I didn't choose anything new. I probably should have chosen something new, but I was like, well, I know this already, so I don't see why not to choose it and make a style guide on it. The other class I was taking this semester was my senior capstone, and I did my final project on the civil rights movement and the influence of art as a protest medium. I couldn't speak there for a while. The civil rights movement with art as a medium for protest. But when I had wrote it, I used Chicago style for organizing all the information and making sure where everything was. However, they wanted APA style for everything. I'm not that big of a fan of APA, but that's what was wanted, so I changed things from Chicago to APA. However, because I'm very interested in history and art history as well, Chicago style is definitely the most relevant to my interests. So the third question is, for each formative challenge in this class, I asked you to prepare an LLM draft. One reason is that I wanted us to compare the effectiveness of the LLM draft versus our own writing skills. Talk briefly about what parts of the AI draft helped you better understand how to approach the assignment. Did it steer you in the right direction? How do you feel about your own work being used to inform future versions of ChatGPT and the like? So the LLM drafting, in my opinion, was both really good and horrible. So I find a lot of times that if you give someone AI, they don't think critically anymore, and they just assume the AI is going to do it all for them. And it's almost like a ghostwriter, in which you kind of take the credit for your work, and then in reality the one that did all the work was the AI. So it's like a ghostwriter, yeah. I found that the draft was really good at steering me towards what I should cover. You know, an introduction, the topic sentence of something, the body of it, each point that I should probably cover in the body, the like summary, and then the official conclusion. And I felt like it was good at pointing this out to me. However, ChatGPT and then later Google Gemini, though it did the heavy lifting for me, at the end, I felt like all I was doing was just filling in the blanks for what wasn't there or what I should fill in. Okay, here's the introduction. All right, I'm gonna type something down and done. Now I have the introduction. But it felt cheap, almost. Like I didn't. Yes, it was there to help me. However, I felt like it just did all the work for me, and I tried to put in a lot of time and effort into really thinking of something before I did the LLM. So I would try to figure out what it was asking me and then write something down very quick. And then after putting the prompt into Google Gemini, because that was the one I used, I felt like it gave me something more substantial than ChatGPT. ChatGPT has its benefits. I had taken a entrepreneurship. Is it entrepreneurship or was it innovation and technology? I think that's what it was. And the teacher had us always using ChatGPT and then doing like reflections on it. I was like, this is cool, but it's innovation technology, and I'm just using ChatGPT. So it has its bonuses, but I found Google Gemini to give more. But I didn't feel like I did with the usage of Google Gemini. It felt like I didn't do. I don't think anybody actually did what they or achieved, I guess. Like if they achieved the sense of accomplishment for finishing out a good school year, and well, I guess school year, it's December, but a good semester. ChatGPT and Google Gemini and the other ones don't really give that, because you could just sit back and relax, and the learning language would just do it for you. And I didn't like that, so I did a lot of drafts myself, and I had one of my friends also look over what I was doing and tell me if I sounded like I was repeating myself too much. It was only some feedback. He didn't do anything with it, with my work. He just read it and said, yeah, that made sense, or no, you're not making any sense. But to make a long story short, it steered me in the right direction, but I didn't feel like, I don't like that my work is being reused through the servers to help influence somebody else's. If it was like my work that I was working hard on. If it was some guidelines that have been pre-established for everybody, then that's a little different. But it's very interesting. So I was very interested, or very pleased to see how it worked better than my other class. For the fourth and final question is, finally imagine you're in an interview for a job that requires excellent written and verbal communication skills. The interviewer asks the following question: your resume, resume and cover letter mention your written and verbal communication skills. Tell me more about how you have developed those skills and how you'll apply them in your position. Choose a position you may like to have in the future and imagine you're interviewing for that job. I'm not sure which position that I'd like to have in the future, because I'm still a little unsure of what I want to do. Figure you'd have it done by now, but guess not. So I wrote down that I have a solid understanding of verbal and written communication skills. Not only have I analyzed various style guides like APA and Chicago Style, which offer guidelines on keeping your information clear and easy to utilize, but I also helped create a custom style guide with some classmates to use precise terminology when dealing with a complex subject like technology, for example. The focus of any style guide and any form of communication is always on the target audience. And for good communication, one has to maintain a good level of detail, as well as using the fitting vocabulary that reduces any useless jargon, and makes sure that the idea of clarity and conciseness um, is targeted for all in different backgrounds. Visual aids, cross-referencing, and good efficiency are all key staples of a good form of verbal and written communication. Specifically with verbal communication, I take a similar approach to those in utilizing every available avenue with the express purpose of clarity, while also being understanding of what someone may need to further process something, and offering different avenues for accessibility like text, bold, italics, and color usage. So thank you. It was a great school year. Or semester, I guess. It was a great semester.